If you look hard enough around the state, you might find a player, a coach, an administrator who was his equal. But no one in the history of Georgia tennis married all three of those together as well as John Callen.
John Callen is a triple threat as far as tennis is concerned.
John Callen is one of the most deserving people to be in the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.
It specifically relates to John and tennis in Georgia, being a visionary and trying new programs at all levels.
For now half a century, John Callen has advanced tennis statewide like few others. Originally from Alabama, he played #1 singles and doubles at Georgia Tech. It was there that others first saw his impressive mind and court awareness.
When I became the tennis coach at Georgia Tech in 1973, I inherited John. He was one of my best players. And John, if I'd have had 6 John Callens, I would still be coaching at Georgia Tech if all my players were as good as he.
You know, what he can do on a tennis court with a tennis ball is really amazing. He's got the greatest hands of anybody I've ever seen. You know, he always comes up with the big shot at the right time.
After graduation, it was off to learn the ropes of on-court teaching and coaching, where he brought several Atlanta and North Georgia tennis clubs to life. Meanwhile, he continued to play in the senior divisions and won many state and southern titles, even reaching #1 in several age divisions.
And I could nearly always count on John for a victory. He was a real competitor. He looked like he was always going at about 70%, but he was really actually giving 100%.
But in the early 1980s, he set down a path that would eventually become his legacy. Callen became president of the Georgia Tennis Association in 1982, and along the way was elected to ALTA's board and the GPTA's board. Eventually, he became the leader and president of the Southern Section.
The director at the time was DeWitt Redgrave, who had passed away, and the Southern Tennis Association put together a selection committee, and John was the vice president of Southern at the time, and they had asked him to serve on the selection committee to try to find the new executive director, and the rest of the members of the committee decided that John was really the person they needed to hire, so they asked him if he would resign from the search committee and interview for the position, which he ended up doing and has served in that capacity for more than 25 years now.
And under his leadership, Southern grew into the largest and possibly the most influential of all the USTA sections.
John is probably the most revered and respected executive director in the United States. I mean, there's 17 executive directors across the country, and he's the most respected and has had such an impact on tennis in not only Georgia, but across the section and the United States.
Well, John has a great job in that he is able to build a consensus from all of the 9 different districts that make up the South, and has had a huge impact on growth of tennis throughout the South.
But maybe his crowning achievement was his bold plan to bring pro tennis back to Atlanta. Atlanta had been without an ATP stop for a decade, and it was not an easy or risk-free endeavor.
John kind of felt that we needed to have professional tennis back in Georgia and back in Atlanta in the South, and he was a driving force in bringing that tournament back to Atlanta. A lot of that's John's doing, but he never wants any credit for that sort of thing, but that's a tremendous asset to the association that we brought tennis back to the South, back to Atlanta.
Today, Callen continues as one of the top administrators in all of American tennis.
He has the great talent to be able to find the third side of the coin, if you would. And he has used this talent throughout his life to be able to bring people together.
USG Southern leadership really entrusts and empowers John to have an open mind about things that we should and could be doing.
John is really a tremendous leader of others in terms of taking kind of a back seat and giving them the ideas. He's the most selfless, intelligent person that I've ever known. He has so many great ideas that when I go to him when I have a question to ask him, I'll say, I'm thinking about this And I was wondering what your opinion would be on the solution, either A or B. And John will come up and say, well, have you thought about C? And C was something I'd never even dreamed about, but it always ended up being the solution to the problem. He's just a tremendous asset to tennis, not only in Georgia, but throughout the United States.
Much of the growth of tennis in the United States is due to John's great leadership of the Southern Tennis Association. I cherish him among one of my really great friends of my life, and I'm very proud of everything that he's done and will continue to do into the future.
Congratulations to John Callen, a worthy member of the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.